used to asking questions.
Hmm?
I'm used to asking questions.
I know.
You want me to be, am I supposed to do like a lot of talking here? It's going to be a tough interview for you. It's going to be tough for you. I'm not used to doing a whole lot of long-winded talking.
Oh man, you're going to be just fine.
Curve the cube will now initiate.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, whatever it is. Hello, and welcome to the 117th episode of the Curve the Cube podcast. I am your host, Jemmy, and I'm so glad that you're joining me here today, because on this episode I have a very special guest, my homeboy, Jules Pierre-Louis, who is fantastic. He is the co-founder of Hive Hub Media, and just embodies so many different talents. He's also the host of the latest show to be added to the Flint Media podcast network, Hustle All Day. He is a true hustler, and not like in the pimp sense, like in knows how to make a dollar sense. And on this episode, we talk about when the switch flipped for him to break out on his own and what he did to break free. So we have a lot to get to with Jules, but first I just want to catch you up as usual on my own goings on. So I mentioned Flintstone Media Podcast Network. That is finally ready to be an official thing, guys. I'm rolling it out. In fact, by the time you hear this, it might be out already. I'm trying to make it live later today after I record this. So if I don't get to it, check back in like 24 hours and it'll probably be live. So go to FSM, which stands for Flintstone Media, FSMPodcastNetwork.com, or probably also podcast.flintstonemedia.com. That's probably also how I set it up. So head to one of those. Check out the network. It's going to be awesome. It's going to have 3 shows. Of course, this one, Jules' show, Hustle All Day. And also the other show that I'm relaunching at Kids After Hours. And that's my first update. Guys, I've been working really hard with our co-hosts, Aaron Wermis and Kate Bowman. And we are coming up with a fantastic show. We got to chat a little bit more about what our segments are going to be. It's going to be a lot of fun. For example, Aaron's is going to be called Street Smarts. I'm so excited about that. And Kate's is going to be called Business Bites, which can be interpreted a million different ways. And mine is going to be called Flipping the Switch, which is so appropriate for me to be introducing that concept to you on this episode, since that's what I'm going to be talking about with Jules, flipping the switch. And all right, so what else? Oh, also, thank you so much again to Kravitz Center for always including me in all of their cool social media stuff. As some of you know, I am a live tweeter for their Broadway series, which means I get the lucky adventure of going to their show openers for all of their Broadway shows and live tweeting them. It's really, really cool. And so they invited me to a red carpet event while they were hosting a viewing party for the Tonys. It was a lot of fun. I got to see a bunch of friends, and it was just really cool. So go to Flintstone Media on Twitter, and you can see all the pictures from that night. It was a lot of fun. And if you're watching the Tony Awards with us, then you got to catch my 87th guest, David Abeles, perform during the in memoriam portion. So big congrats to him on a job well done. Dave and I have been friends since we were kids, really. In fact, he's the funny story that led me to my first time at Kravitz Center, that led my son to his first time at Kravitz Center, seeing Dave perform as Miss Trunchbull and Matilda. It was great. So he is a true curvist through and through. So big congratulations to him. And the final thing I want to update you guys on is that I will be having kind of my coming out party, my debut, my public speaking woohoo this Saturday. And I'm finally not nervous about it anymore. I've been super nervous. I am speaking to the Mystery Writers of America Florida chapter about podcasting. They wanted to know, how do we get onto podcasts as guests? How do we have a good podcast once we're on? And then how do we start our own podcast? So it's going to be a really big opportunity, a really great room to speak in. I'm really excited about it. So that's going to be happening on the 17th. If you haven't had a chance to sign up yet and attend, if you're local, go to flintstonemedia.com and you'll find information there for it. You're supposed to, I think today as I'm recording is the deadline, the 14th, to pre-register to attend, but walk-ins are welcome with spaces available. So if you really want to know about podcasting, come and meet me that day. It'll be a lot of fun. All right. So anyways, one more thing I wanted to mention about that presentation. So it's taken a lot of work, and this goes into me curving my own cube story. It's taken a lot of work. There are so many things I wanted to have solidly in place. So when I'm up there speaking in front of all these wonderful people and making what I hope is a very good impression, that when they go and see me online and my website and everything else, that it's as good of the impression holds up, right? That's the goal. So I've been working to get a lot of things done, including, like I'm saying, tying a bow finally on the podcast network, getting Eggheads After Hours rolling to relaunch, helping Jules launch his podcast, and a million other things that I've had to do that are so behind the scenes and boring you just don't even need to hear about them. But this is going to be huge, and I'm really excited about it. And I'm finally feeling like the panic attack part of me is melting away. And then I got kind of, I want to be delicate how I put this, because I can't get into details because it doesn't involve me, and it's a very personal and sensitive matter, and it's not just about me. But I got kind of almost thrown for a loop a little bit yesterday. There's going to be an additional element I was considering whether or not I should have as part of and present during this presentation and part of the presentation. And I ultimately thought it through overnight and realized that, you know what, I cannot stand here speaking into this microphone and encouraging people to be brave and be courageous and to be fearless and to pursue their dreams if I'm not going to walk the walk. I can't just talk the talk. So, no matter what it gets thrown at me, if I'm a podcaster true, one of the muscles I have to develop and have to be secure in is to be able to expect the unexpected and go with the flow and still stand firm in who I am and on my own 2 feet and be confident regardless of what's happening around me that I don't have as much control over. And to start welcoming that into my life and as a way of testing myself and testing my own mettle. So I decided to hit go, and the green light is on for that thing to be part of everything on Saturday and on my presentation, and I'm finally not nervous about it anymore. So I'm hoping for a good day. I'm hoping to also live stream it. I haven't decided yet if it'll be on YouTube or if it'll be on Facebook Live, but please pay attention to any announcements on social media as to what I'm going to end up doing that day, and you can watch right along with me if you're not able to show up and be local. So thank you so much for listening. Sit back and relax and enjoy this convo with Jules Pierre-Louis about flipping the switch and breaking free, which I, of course, take to the learning curve on the flip side of the conversation. And then don't get confused, because it'll be followed by a quick clip pulled from his podcast, Hustle All Day, and I appear on that episode as a guest co-host, so you'll hear us both again. All right, you fearless curvist you. It's the 117th episode of the Curve the Cube podcast. Enjoy.
Hey, what's up? Do I need to talk directly in this? Or
You're good, just like that. Yeah, you're fine. Cool. Yeah, so, all right. So today's topic, like I mentioned, we're going to talk about flipping the switch and breaking free. Okay. And the reason I thought it was such a good topic for today is because, well, first of all, it's good timing to have you on right now, because you're about to really fully launch. You're in the works. You have just fully launched your own podcast, which is called
Hustle All Day.
You had to think about that?
I did. I wasn't ready for the question.
What do you think we were doing, Jules?
Hustle All Day podcast.
And it's going to be part of the Flintstone Media Podcast Network, which rolls out within the next, hopefully, week or two. Oh my gosh. By the time this is out, it might actually be hot and rocking, so we'll see. Sure. But yeah, and so there's that going on, and you and I have a good history together. We used to work for the same employer back a little year and a half maybe ago, something like that. Sure. And both of us kind of have been working to break out and break free, and so I thought it was really great timing to have you on today, and I'm so excited that my boy Jules, who any of my listeners know I've mentioned plenty of times on the podcast.
Have you really?
Oh, does that mean you don't listen? Have you really not?
Are you serious?
I have.
What could you okay, now I gotta listen to the podcast.
Well, I didn't say it was anything positive. I just...
notice I didn't ask. I definitely didn't ask. All right, I'll have to check it out then.
So tell us. All right, so my main question is, first, let's just tell people what you're doing. Tell us about your company, Hive Hub Media. So let's just get that on the table so people can get a little bit of an anchor here.
All right, so Hive Hub Media is a company that myself and a partner of mine, Jared Richter. What's going on, Jared? We started it. Basically, what we serve is, our motto is fueled by content, powered by creatives. So what we do is we like to work with artists, with creators, and by that, a creator can be anything. It could be anything from a web developer to, I don't know, a comedian and entrepreneurs. Reason being is because we as creatives ourselves, we know that we feel like creatives should be sticking to whatever their craft is, and that all the stuff that comes around, that circles around that, the marketing aspects of it, the business aspect of it, what I like to call the suit stuff.
Right.
They're best suited just doing whatever their craft is, and we like to handle all the rest. So we do a lot of things from the publishing to the distribution, a whole lot of things.
Video production, all of that, yeah.
Yep,
And with a voice like that, folks, how could Jules exist in life and not have his own podcast? So I'm so excited that you got on the mic and you're starting the podcast. So tell people what Hustle All Day is about and how it ties into the general concept of what you're doing in life.
All right, so Hustle All Day is pretty much, it serves almost that same community. It's because that community, they hustle. And by hustle, that means that they take whatever resources they have at the time and they use those resources to accomplish a specific objective. That's hustle. And as a business owner, you pretty much have to hustle all day. There's no breaks. If you're not hustling all day, that means that you are doing it as a side project of some sort. Maybe you have a day job. So my objective with the Hustle All Day podcast is to take people from, hey, I have a 9-to-5 and a side hustle, to my hustle is all day. And
I love that concept, because a lot of people, when I've interviewed a bunch of people on Curve the Cube, and a lot of them are those creatives, and that tends to be a recurring theme that you don't want to have to deal with, right. The business side of all of that and the technical side of all of that. So I think it's a beautiful, wonderful concept.
Yep.
All right, so let's get into what it means to flip the switch. There was a time when, and I mentioned actually on the last podcast briefly, that I got a random text from a guy I used to work with named Jules, saying, hey, can I pick your brain? Can we meet up? Can we talk? Right. And it started us meeting, you, me, and Jared, and eventually also Teresa, and kind of just supporting each other as we were figuring out ways to break free. So when did the switch flip in your brain that you wanted to no longer work for the quote-unquote man and do your own thing and run your own life like that?
To tell you the truth, that decision was made back when, that decision was made almost, I'm going to age myself, but almost like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Acting on it was a different thing. From the very first job I ever had, I realized, you know what, I'm not going to be a very good employee. Ever. I'm not built for this.
Oh my God, we relate so well on that.
That was something that I knew early on.
Yeah.
My father was it really goes back to my father. Watching my father run all sorts of businesses when I was younger, and I'm running around with him doing it. And if he ever had a boss, he was doing sales. So he still typically, by all intents and purposes, was still managing his own income and managing himself, managing his own destiny.
Right.
So with watching that growing up, looking back, I realize now I never would have made a good employee. I never, that mindset just doesn't match me.
Right. Yeah, I feel you on that. So when did you say, okay, now it's time to really, really go from just the mental switch being flipped, so now I'm going to actually take action and do something about this?
It's been bits. It's been gradual. At every stage that I try, because I've been trying my own ventures since I was a little kid. From every entrepreneur's done it, from the selling candy to whatever. So at every step, I just basically, it's kind of like diving.
Yeah.
Every time I went for a dive, I just would go deeper and deeper and deeper, and with varying results. Sometimes I never fail. Even when I failed, let's put it like this. Even when I failed, I took a lesson from it.
True.
And said, okay, this is why I failed, and would go back in again and try something different.
And that's the mark of someone who just can't give up.
No, I know. I have no choice. The birth of my son, definitely 5 years ago, the birth of my son was that was a major catalyst. Like,
right.
Okay, at some point I'm going to need to leave some sort of legacy for him or leave a better future for him than, because working for somebody else, you can't leave a legacy.
Right.
You leave the job, and that's it. It's a wrap.
Right.
But if I leave some sort of business or some sort of, something for him that he can either take over or take lesson from,
right,
he'll be in a better position. So that was a big motivator. I don't know. I'm sorry, but I just don't feel like I have a definitive point in time where I can say, this is where I hit the switch. It's been really, I've just been turning the switch on and off my whole life. I turn on the light, I see something, and I turn it off. I turn it on, you know what I mean? That's what it's been for me.
One toe in, and then a toe out. Exactly. And then maybe 2 toes in, and then 2 toes out.
And every single time I see something, and then you know what I mean? So
yeah.
There's not one specific point where I could say this is where it happened. I guess, from our the last place that we worked together, that you and I both know of, there was one moment where I finally decided that's it. There was that.
Yeah.
I don't. Is that kind of?
Share it if you'd like.
All right, sure. Why not? So.
It's called pulling teeth, people.
So I mean, you listen. I'm not gonna. We both worked for the same company. We had the same guy that we worked for.
Yeah.
I learned a lot from him.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna take away from his overall business acumen.
Yeah.
Like I feel like he's had successes in the past. And even now, he's making a lot of moves with what he's doing right now. I
mean, to his credit, it's similar in us. He's a serial entrepreneur.
Absolutely, absolutely, always has been. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Managing people though is a different thing, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Have you ever managed people before? Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's. I used to be a assistant project manager on a job site in construction, basically.
Okay.
And I worked at several job sites. And this is, I'm in my mid-20s.
Yeah.
And at the time, I mean, my knowledge of construction itself was basic, very like entry level. Like at best, I could pretty much like read a blueprint, right? But with that knowledge, managing people that were skills tradesmen and skilled in whatever their particular craft was, managing them and making sure they stayed on task and making sure things were to spec and et cetera, et cetera. I mean, that was the ideal situation for me to learn what it's like managing people. I mean, I'm managing union guys from up north. I don't know if you're familiar, but I mean, they're a whole different breed of individual, right? The Joes, the Mikes. They're like a whole different breed. Yeah. So some little 20-year-old punk telling them, hey, what you're doing is wrong, or we need to make adjustments. So I had to constantly learn how to manage people. In doing that, I realized that the guy I was working for probably didn't have the same skill set as far as dealing with people. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It requires a lot of patience. It requires a certain amount of humility too.
Yeah.
And so there was a moment where
you have to lead from behind a lot.
A lot. And so there were a couple of moments during the 2 or 3 years that I worked for him that I felt like, you know what, there's certain things I can put up with, and there's certain things I can't. And there was one last moment where we were on a conference call, not even a conference call, but we were on we were about to do a webcast, and I've got a million things going. You everything I did. So I got a million things going.
Head of HR.
Yeah, right?
Sorry, inside joke.
Inside baseball. So he's on the side. He was on the webcast as well. Actually, he was hosting it, and it just so happened that he was in a different location. So he's sitting there, and I'm trying to get the webcast up, and then I'm doing a million other things, and he's sitting there in my ear. I hear him on the speaker coming out of the computer speaker. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hey, can you hear me? And my microphone was on mute at the time because I'm doing other stuff, and that's just a habit of mine. I keep it on mute because as long as you're on there, you don't need to. Right. As long as it's set up, I can multitask and do other things. So he's just there, and he's in my ear, and I'm trying to get to him to unmute, and because it's a whole process basically just to respond to him. Right. Would be a whole process. So I had to finish what I was doing to get to that process, and it just clicked in my mind at that moment. Like that to me was a metaphor for. There's always going to be some employer in your ear. Just, right. Can you hear me? Right. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? While you're trying to do your thing. You know what I mean? That particular moment. And then
probably coming back to you later as to why you didn't finish that thing that you were working on.
Right. So at that moment, I pretty much, in my mind, that was it. Yeah. Yeah. I eventually did respond to him, and that was a colorful conversation. Uh-huh. Yeah, and from there, basically, I went home that day, and the very next day, I spoke to my wife, and the very next day, I sent him an email. Wow. Yeah, the very next day, I sent him an email. Wow. I said, your typical resignation notice.
Yeah. So, when I started the podcast, and I started trying to put the message out there that people can pursue what they want to do, I've been trying to be very mindful about how I deliver that message and the responsibility that can entail, because you don't want to tell people, all right, burst into your boss's office and burn the house down and say F you and F this. No, everybody still needs to put food in their belly and a roof over their head. So, and obviously, having a child 5 years ago, not only impresses upon you the importance of leaving a legacy, but also just the responsibility of another life to take care of. So how have you balanced that in the transition out into doing your own thing? How have you broken free and made sure that can be as responsible as possible?
That's a good question. I think that's something that a lot of people, kind of like work-life balance.
Yeah.
I can't say how well it's working for me.
So how well it works for any of us.
Yeah, because the results will tell, and
Right.
I think it's a little bit too early for me to determine how well it's working. But the strategy I've been using is just actually staying close to what I like and what I know my strengths are.
Yeah.
That way, it's just a lot easier to have that balance. Balance is about something being in motion and having and working with that motion versus controlling the motion, right? If you're on a bicycle, you're going to be in constant motion to keep the balance. Otherwise, you're going to fall one way or the other.
Right.
So that's hustle all day, is in staying in constant motion and staying close to whatever your strengths are. So me doing Hive Hub Media is something that I'm passionate about. When it comes to tech, I'm more. I enjoy more tech that involves communication and broadcasting than I do anything else. Than I do sitting down writing some
Code.
Yeah, you know what I mean? If the code is related to something that's going to be, the next Facebook where there's communication involved and there's people involved, some sort of social element, cool. But if it's just some, static thing that, sterile thing that nobody's really interacting with, then it's I don't get a lot out of it. So the work-life balance comes from I enjoy it. The life part being, okay, my son and my wife and my family life, they see me happy. When you're happy, when you're doing something that you're happy about,
right.
It's easier to be around you, right? Versus being, let's say I was doing accounting, which I hate, right? I'd come home every day and I'd be miserable,
right?
And that would reflect on the life part.
Yeah,
it even reflect on the work part because my work performance wouldn't be as good as it would be doing something I like.
Absolutely, but let's break it down to brass tacks though, because daily life and it requires finances, and so that's been the scary and difficult thing for me in breaking free is, you go from that steady paycheck situation to a situation where now every single drop of income relies on the effort that you put out there, and how have you helped to make sure you get the money coming in and keep on top of it?
I'm somebody that's always had multiple ventures going on.
Okay, yeah.
Even right now, I mean, my brother and I and some other family members, we have a venture that we're launching in a few days, a few weeks, I should say. That's going to take up a lot of my time. Listen, I've always got something going.
Hustle all day.
Yeah, not only just hustle all day, but another thing I'm a firm believer in is multiple streams of income.
Right.
Not relying on just one stream.
Diversifying that portfolio.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm a big believer in that. So I got several things going. Even Uber. Once in a while, I'll jump in the car and do Uber. Like there's always something moving so that there's constant income coming in. So that's where, that's how I'm paying my bills. I don't know. I try, like I said earlier, I try to make sure that all those things revolve around things that I'm actually interested in.
Yeah.
This venture that I'm doing with the family, we're actually looking into doing trucking. Yeah.
Wow.
So we're actually looking at buying a tow truck company.
Oh my gosh.
So, I mean, did I grow up saying, hey, I was going to be a tow truck driver? Not necessarily, but buying the business itself, it's not that I'm not buying. See, here's the thing too. I don't, when I set up a certain stream of income, I don't set it up so that I'm buying myself a job.
Right. I'm
buying a business. The point of being in business is to one day sell that business, right? So I don't go in saying, or whatever project or venture I'm working on, I don't go in saying, all right, for every hour because basically you're buying yourself a job. Is where every unit of time that you put into it, you get a certain unit of income. Nah, I'd rather just buy the business, buy the whole goose, and then set it up, put up systems, put up processes, so that
there's a passive stream of income, and
so that it can run itself. So that's the stage I'm at in my life, is setting up a couple of those and letting those trickle down. Hopefully.
That's brilliant. So let's see some takeaways. When you can break free, you have the opportunity to now focus on things that you are enjoying, and making sure that your income streams come from much more of the types of things that you actually like to do.
Right. Because the things you like to do, you'll be better at them.
Yeah.
You'll perform better.
Yeah, and in doing that, don't just say, okay, I'm only going to sell my paintings on the corner. I'm only going to do this, or I'm only going to do that. Figure out the other ways that you can
leverage.
complement that. Exactly, and leverage and diversify that income portfolio.
Yeah.
All right, so that's how you flip the switch and break free.
Yes.
All right.
That's the way I did it.
I love it. Yeah. Thank you, Jules. It was a great conversation. So tell people how they can find you, your business, your podcast, and harass you online. How can they do that?
You already know.
I do.
I'm going to say it, and you're going to trip. At Chef Boyardeuce.
I love it.
ChefBoyardeuce. I'm always cooking something.
There you go.
So you find me on Twitter, Instagram, Snap, everything is at Chef Boyardeuce. Hive Hub Media, hivehubmedia.com. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, at Hive Hub Media. HIVEHUB Media.
Fantastic. And I'll put this out there. I know that you floated the idea of doing a writer's series on your podcast at some point.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if there are any writers out there,
yes.
Reach out to Jules. And
authors, writers of any kind, screenwriters, I could consider comedians writers.
Yeah, totally.
Anything.
Absolutely.
Musicians, everybody, entrepreneurs, anything you got going on where you consider it your hustle. I'd love to hear from you.
All right, and I'm going to be including a little bit of a clip from the James Oliver episode.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
At the end of this episode, so people are going to hear that. So watch out for Hustle All Day. Yeah. Watch out for Flintstone Media Podcast Network.
Right.
And hustle all day to curve those cubes. This has been Jemmy with Jules Pierre-Louis. I just love your name, by the way.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot for coming on.
All right. Peace.
Yay!
Wow, that just happened.
That just happened, and you were fantastic.
You think so? I feel like I was running my
No, I'm trashing it right now.
Welcome to the learning curve.
So, first let's talk about flipping the switch. When the itch to go out on your own first strikes you, I want you to first think of your transition in phases. So, first of all, think about it in realistic initial ideas terms. What do you want to do? Think about how you're first going to step out and make a name for yourself in whatever you're doing. And that might take, in fact, I encourage you to literally draw out a Venn diagram of what you've built a resume doing this whole time you've been out there doing whatever jobs and whatever you've been doing, and what it is that you want to do. And look at where they overlap. Whatever falls into that gray area, that's where you want to build your bridge. I knew it would be a pretty big leap for me to go from being a data analyst to suddenly pushing my marketing company, especially with virtually zero portfolio to speak of as in marketing. It just wouldn't make sense. No one was going to hire me to do anything. So I had to think first of what that bridge could be. And so that brings me to my next point. Secondly, what is that bridge? When you think about your bridge, in my case, I'll share it in a second, but how are you going to monetize that bridge? And you need to sometimes get really, really creative. So I started first by looking at data analyst jobs that were focused on marketing data, so that I could at least be in the right environment to maybe pick up on some skills and some insights and whatever, and add some projects to my resume and just kind of get a little bit immersed into the marketing world and start, picking up on some stuff. And so in doing that and using the skills I already had as a data analyst and applying them to marketing, I gained a sense of what really works in marketing because I examined the data for so long and pretty in depth. So yes, I looked for opportunities to work on data, which is what I was getting away from, but in such a way that it opened myself up to learning larger marketing strategies, such as attacking SEO and building strong, clean websites and graphic design, all of that stuff. It just kind of circled around me and I was able to dabble in it. And this led to some side work that I was able to pluck out of people. So these were people who couldn't yet afford a more seasoned professional or, hire a whole agency for their marketing and stuff like that. they really needed someone on the cheap to do something here and there. So I started using the experiences I gained from working on marketing projects, even though I was running the data analytics of it, and dabbling in marketing work. And this gave me a chance to add actual marketing experiences to my resume. And as I got further into the stages of my transition to independence and curving my cube, I was able to build on that more and more, adding more clients as I had more to show on my portfolio. So eventually, my marketing skills grew enough that I was able to take a full, entire leap. So what was important was first figuring out what I wanted to do, big important step, and then getting creative about the bridge I could build between that and what I was doing and what I wanted to do, and monetizing my independence towards that goal in stages. So thirdly, throughout your transition, and I'm going to drive this into your head over and over again because it's one of my top tips and I love it, so listen close. Throughout your transition, write down your why list and build on it. I went into detail on this in episode 114, so rewind back if you missed it, but essentially building your why list and continuing to add to it as you go and grow is essential to keeping you sane. So let's talk about some timelines and goals, because you're going to have to replace the income you're currently making at some point, right, in order to become independent. It's not like whatever job you're leaving is just going to suddenly be nice and start paying you when you're no longer there. That's not going to happen. So first of all, keep from burning bridges both before and during your transition out. You don't want to be asked to leave before you're financially ready to do so. Oh my gosh, I was so obsessed with getting the heck out of Dodge when I first flipped the switch that I made a lot of mistakes. Don't do what I did and let things falter at work. Stay engaged and at least pretend to still care so that you make the final decision on when it's the right time for you to leave. Now, I want to be clear, because my message of Curve the Cube isn't necessarily that everyone should leave their job and go do XYZ that they're passionate about as a living. Ultimately, that would be a great goal. But some people, what they're passionate about is really just something that's a hobby, and that's okay. But you still need to figure out a way to be fully engaged and passionate about it so you can feel content and fulfilled in life, and do that in a way that doesn't burn your bridges on whatever is bringing in your paycheck. Okay? Be very, very clear about that. So in my case, I was helping the KVJ show with the campaign to get them back on the air to such an extent that it was consuming my days. So I would rush out to talk to them on the phone when they needed me and pay entirely too much attention to what was happening on social media with the campaign. Now, in my defense, I was at the helm of it, so it took all my attention to not have it balloon out of control and to be able to stay on top of every single bit and piece of everything that was going on with it. But if I had to do it over again with 2020 hindsight, I wouldn't have cared more about their bottom line than mine. That was my big mistake, and I paid a huge price for that. So make sure that you don't sacrifice more than you should or need to, or before you should or need to. I spent many late nights building my business and my podcast. Many late nights. Oh, those days, those early days as a single mom of an infant especially, were brutal, but I don't regret any of that. And I don't regret leaving the company I was at when I started to first curve my cube, but I do regret the manner in which I let that job fall by the wayside while I was still there. Honestly, that wasn't cool of me, and I shifted too much of my focus all at once. So my advice to you is just be careful of that. Be mindful. Don't burn bridges on your way out. That is no bueno. But once you are ready, and once you've built that solid bridge, and it's time to break free, well, let's talk about more about that moment, okay? So Again, think about what you can do now to strike out. Though it may not be the main part of your long-term goals, what is it that you've built a career doing that you can offer independently first as your phase one? Now, phase one spans both when you haven't left your job yet and when you're first flying solo. That point at which you decide to leave your job during phase one will be different for everyone, and it's completely up to you and your financial situation. But whatever it is that can act as that bridge talent or service offering will be what carries you into your independence. Then, to increase your cash flow and minimize your risk, I sound like I'm on Wall Street or something, don't I? Diversify your offerings. Like Jules was saying, is working for him is creating a variety of revenue streams. So after being able to leave his previous employment, he is making sure to keep up with reality. Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get, but diversify to keep things staying and tasting sweet. So it's also time to take stock of what you're willing to sacrifice. Because while you need to think about ways to bring money in, you also probably need to think about other ways to balance things out. Yeah, I'm really talking sacrifices. And your sacrifices will likely be financial and just basic life stuff, as you'll need to be super dedicated to curving your cube to even have a chance. Late nights, changes in your lifestyle, weekend spending habits, friends, sanity, money, type of food you eat, the type of place you live in, your dating life. I mean, everything needs to be considered. Sounds fun, right? Well, unfortunately, I'm not kidding. It's going to be impactful on your life. So you need to make sure to continuously take stock and keep looking back at your why list to keep you motivated. And also, when you're breaking free, man, just be ready to expect the unexpected. Because with stepping out on your own and curving your cube and making sacrifices comes learning to expect the unexpected. Those life curveballs only get bigger and come at you faster. Things can and will fall spectacularly to pieces at the absolute worst time possible. It happens to all of us. But the good news is that things will also fall spectacularly into place at the absolute best time possible. It's true. So the best times are easy to deal with, right? I'll skip right over those. But how will you keep yourself from giving up when things get difficult? Turn to your why list. Duh. And also, remember to keep perspective. These difficult times can be a fork in the road where the journey ends up either evolving your end goals themselves into something even bigger and better, or you give up. Don't give up. For me, yeah, things didn't work out with the KVJ show as I was led to believe they would and expect that they would, but that, though it totally sucked at the time, ended up being a fantastic fork in the road for me, as it kept me free to focus on podcasting and goals for my brand, which has been amazing. But let's take a breath for just a second. I don't want to be all gloom and doom. Because while I recommend thinking through all this stuff, I don't want you to think so hard through things that they become a never-ending excuse Ferris wheel for delay. Planning is smart, but don't delay your dream to break free due to laziness and under fear. That is not the curvist way. So that is today's learning curve. And I will now let you hear a clip from the newest podcast on the Flintstone Media Podcast Network from today's guest, Jules, called Hustle All Day. You can learn more and hear more at podcast.flintstonemedia.com or fsmpodcastnetwork.com. And you may recognize the co-host voice. And the guest on that episode is James Oliver Jr., who you will come to know very well this fall, as I will be using excerpts from his book, The More You Hustle, The Luckier You Get, in a special series ending with him as my 3rd anniversary guest on October 15th. So thanks for checking out episode 117 of the Curve the Cube podcast, and enjoy this quick clip from Hustle All Day.
So I read another really fascinating book. I mean, I listen to books a lot, called The Hard Thing About Hard Things.
I've got that on my list right now. Yeah, I'm about 12 or 13 chapters deep into that.
Right. So Ben Horowitz, he's like, listen, there's a couple of really good takeaways from that book. Right. So I'm not going to bore you with the other two, but he said that the main differentiator between the successful CEOs and unsuccessful CEOs, other than the fact that the successful ones, even when they don't think they have a move, they have a move and they figure out what the move is that they can make. But the key differentiator is the successful ones, they don't quit. They just find a way to keep grinding and keep going. And so I'm like, oh, hallelujah, I write that, because I'm like, that's all I'm any good at. So, I think I got a chance at this thing.
One book I wanted to discuss with you in your relation to it was The Alchemist. You mentioned that a couple of times in your book. Jamie and I have both read. Fascinating book. What are your thoughts on that? What were your takeaways from there?
Bro, two ones that come to mind. I probably had some more that I wrote about in the book, but the problem is, like, my brain just doesn't work that well anymore. I have 4-year-old twins, and I have twin toddler brain.
Oh, we get it. I mean, almost get it. We almost get it. We get it by half.
I used to be a lot smarter, I swear, before I had twins. But now, I feel like I'm burning a candle at 3 ends. I bet you didn't know a candle had 3 ends, did you?
Only the most resilient ones do.
But to answer your question, so there's 2 takeaways that I can recall right now. I can't remember if there was a third in the book. There might have been. But, just the main character, like, this dude set out to fulfill his personal legend. And to do so, he, like, nearly died, right? He got the crap kicked out of him. And I was like, oh, my God. I'm like, this is me. Like, I am this character. And I'm just like, you got to be willing to get the crap beat out of you to get what you really want in life. And that's just so clear.
It's absolutely true. We get scarred, but that makes us strong, right?
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, that's not to say that you necessarily are going to get the crap beat out of you, but, I mean, there are going to be times where it probably feels like it.
Yeah, I think you have to be willing to in order to get anywhere. You have to at least be willing to.
Yeah, and it's like, I think I talked about this in the book, too. I was watching Oprah, and she had a guest on there, and they talked about how when you make the decision to be on purpose, if you will, and for me, and I talk about this a lot in the book, too, like, I mean, my purpose in terms of work is entrepreneurship, man. It's just clear to me. I'm unemployable, I think, at this point.
I agree I can say that about myself every day.
As a kid, I know I wanted to be an entrepreneur, so I should have been doing that all along, right? So entrepreneurship. And then the other thing with the book called A Woman of the Desert, so a man, a woman of the desert, somebody that's going to be there for you and be supportive of you as you fulfill your personal legend, because I think that without the support of your husband or wife, spouse, or significant other, I think either the marriage, the relationship will end, or the book is going to, or the business will end, or both will end.
Do your own curvist dreams involve perhaps getting a podcast of your very own? Well, you're in luck. You've come to the right place, because you're now listening to Liberated Syndication's newest affiliate. Yeah, me. So if you want to host with the best hosting company, honest to God, I can't say enough really wonderful things about Libsyn. Go to libsyn.com, Libsyn. There's some other solid hosting companies out there, but they truly are the best. They're focused on the podcaster, and their customer service is outstanding. And if you go there and you use my promo code IGNITE, IGNITE, then you'll get your first month of podcasting for free. How awesome is that? So if you want to be a podcaster, then check out libsyn.com and use my promo code IGNITE. Now, my passion behind this project is to provide people who want to go from being dreamers to being doers tips for free on how to be a curvist and get it done. I know how expensive pursuing your dream can be. I know that especially in the beginning, you seem to need to reinvest every dime made right back into your project. So let the podcast, The Learning Curve, and the group Dreamers Become Doers on Facebook be your cheap and easy route to support. Whether you have very little budget to put toward your dream right now and can't afford a professional consultant, or are more risk averse and are just dipping a toe in the water following your dream, or just plain want as much great info for free as possible, you are why I am doing this podcast. But I'd like you to consider your stance on that little word free. Because though this podcast does have sponsors, they do not cover the full cost of production. And I also really want to upgrade my equipment, to be honest, so I can keep making this show grow and become even better for you. So, what would you be able to contribute to the cause? Any amount helps. Please go to patreon.com/curvethecube and consider donating even just $1. It would make a huge difference. Thanks for that, and thanks for listening.
You have successfully curved the cube.